Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. My name is Anthony Wilson.
I'm Judy Kanhai, and this is Money Matters. In this week's program, Group Chairman of Answer McAl, A. Norman Sabga, talks about the impact crime is having on not just businesses, but on everyone, and what Answer McAl is doing to safeguard its employees. Also, Chairman of the Steering Committee of the TNT Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative, Victor Hart, will join us on set. He will talk about how the EITI has been monitoring the money the government collects from energy companies.
And what is life like after ArcelorMittal? One former employee of the steel company tells us just how difficult it is to get a job months after the steel plant shut its doors. But before we get to those interviews, earlier on, Judy and I spoke with the Group Chairman of Answer McAl, A. Norman Sabga, for this next interview. How has this year been for Answer McAl, for the group?
Anthony, it's been a challenging year, but our DNA is one where we look for opportunity. We never look at the difficult side of the equation. We always look at the positive side. And there is opportunity, and we have grasped those areas of opportunity.
Which of the companies in the group are performing really well despite the contraction of the economy?
The financial sector is doing well. The trading and distribution sector is doing quite well. Companies that have strong management teams, companies that are focused on their day-to-day activities, companies that have the leadership and the energy and the drive and commitment, even in a difficult industry, does do well.
Mr. Sabga, you've seen marginal increase in your financial results for at least 9 months ended September 30th. Your profit after tax, very marginal increase. Were you disappointed at the end of that period with the results? And what were your initial projections? What would you have liked to see at the end of that 9-month period?
That's an interesting question, and it's also a funny question because internally, the organization was hugely disappointed. Externally, everybody seemed to think we had done phenomenally well. So we were not happy with the result. We were all attempting to do a lot better, but the market itself, the brokers, the investing public, seemed to be extremely happy with what we've accomplished within this particular period. That doesn't satisfy our desire to do better, but we're still...
What was your projections at the start of 2016? What were your projections for the end of your fiscal year? What sort of increase in profit would you have liked to see?
At least 12.5% growth year on year.
Answer purchased McInerney Alstons during a period of severe downturn, probably almost as bad as this one. Do you yourself see any parallels between that acquisition, the way that Answer McAl has grown in the maybe 30 years since, and how we treat with 2016 realities?
I don't see a correlation between the two periods. I think at that time, the economy was in a far worse position than it is today. Remember that there were significant devaluations. There was foreign exchange control, and companies were actually in receivership and were failing. We're not seeing that today. We do talk about recession. What we're actually experiencing is revenues that are not really shrinking.
Yes.
What we're experiencing is escalation in cost and operating expenses. So when revenues are the same, it seems the purchasing power is still there.
What costs are you seeing really affecting businesses right now?
Well, in some areas, raw material costs have gone up. In other areas, your operational cost. We've had salary increases in certain areas with unionized staff and our regular staff, normal yearly increases. We all talked about crime, safety, security costs have gone up. Cost of delivery, traffic is horrendous.
One of the major factors you're saying is basically crime. What would you like to see done to fix this situation that is affecting families, it's affecting businesses, the cost of doing business, and it seems we're spending billions of dollars annually on national security, but the crime situation is getting worse. From where you sit, what would you like to see done?
I'd like to see the detection rate increase significantly. I would like to see the perpetrators of crime being caught and prosecuted. I think if that were to happen, you'd have a lot less crime. What is happening today is that people are committing acts of violence and crime, and they're getting away with it. The other day, there were 2 schoolboys in school uniforms who were pulled out of a taxi and shot. And it made news for 2 days. And for a week, the country was aghast by it. I would have thought that in other countries, people would not have rested until the perpetrators were caught and prosecuted. To allow a crime like that to have happened and not actually detected who committed it and brought them to justice, I think is an injustice. This latest murder of Banfield has totally and completely shocked the nation. And I think that in itself is a call to action, that enough is enough. It seems that the criminals are free and the citizens are in jail, locked up and scared to move around.
How do you feel that at any given time, one of your employees can be killed given the whole situation that's going on in the country?
We've taken precautions. For instance, money is not left on compounds. Our daily sales are picked up by security, armed security. So the action, I remember 3 years ago, one of the security guards on a Carib truck was shot and killed. And immediately I told the people at Carib, we're taking all cash off of the trucks. Life is more important than, we must find a solution to this.
If you were Prime Minister, what would your priorities be in turning this economy around right now? Government
Needs to govern and regulate rather than manage organizations. I think if it were up to me, and I would divest a lot of the non-performing state enterprises. I would divest a lot of the state enterprises that were drain on the economy. I think that would be a step in the right direction.
Ansa McCall has been linked to having interest in acquiring the 49% stake in TSTT that's held by CWC, Cable and Wireless Communications. Can you speak generally about the group's interest in getting into the telecommunications sector?
It's not an area that we are acquainted with. We tend to want to invest in areas where we can bring benefit to the companies that with knowledge and management. In that area, there is no expertise.
One of the other large blocks of potential acquisitions in Trinidad and Tobago in 2016 is the CL Financial Group. Do you have any interest in any one of those companies?
There is interest, but there must be a willing buyer and a willing seller. And as of today's date, there's only one side of the equation, and that is a willing buyer. So none of those assets that we could possibly be interested in has actually come to market.
When we come back, we talk to the chairman of the steering committee of the TNT Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative.